This episode is brought to you by our prodigal patrons.
Prodigal's a stupid word.
No, it's a great word. Second definition, adjective, having or giving something on a lavish scale.
I didn't need all that. I hate that you came prepared.
Always.
For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show and get access to perks like early access first plays, show notes, because we do take notes, unedited episodes of what you're about to hear. You'll hear all the in-between bits, and even the famous Patreon poll submissions.
The best.
So if you haven't been feeling prodigal enough and want to, join us over at patreon.com/NGP podcast, where you can help support our ongoing efforts to entertain you with retro gaming content. Thank you all for participating in your civic duty by joining us in today's NGP bench trial, where we will revisit the retro video game known as Bomberman 64. Bailiff, this is docket XLM25-X. Today, we will have statements from both the prosecution and defense, supported by opportunities to present evidence that they've collected both individually and from our community, to determine on behalf of our directors whether Bomberman 64 does in fact deserve NGP status. I would like to remind the court that this official proceeding is a serious matter with long-term consequences that will directly impact the popularity of Bomberman 64 and indirectly have impact on the weight of future NGP decisions, and therefore should be approached as a serious duty to the public good, and in no way should it just be considered a fun deviation from our standard format inspired by Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney.
Amen.
Have I made myself clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. We all know that I have a gavel, and I'm not afraid to use it. So, court is now in session. I'll hear opening statements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Defense. What is fun? That is what I hope to answer today. Fun, as we all know, is an acronym. F-U-N. Fun. F. Flawless level design. When it comes to video games, we all enjoy creative, familiar, but unique level design. We want level design that makes sense, that is cohesive within the world from which it comes. However, we do want there to be a spark of creativity. We want it to flow, and we want it to feel, again, unique. That's F, flawless level design. U, ultra-inspired enemies. We know that. When we play video games, we enjoy ultra-inspired enemies. We want them to operate differently. We want them to provide unique challenges, particularly when it comes to the bosses. We want those to be incredible experiences that deviate from one another within the world from whence they came. U is ultra-inspired enemies. N is nice controls. Nice controls. We want the controls to be tight. We want it to feel like your controls pack a punch. On top of that, you absolutely want wonderful camera control. Especially and particularly with a game that involves a controller that requires 3 hands to use. You want the buttons and everything within them to just be nice to play. Again, what is fun? Flawless level design, ultra-inspired enemies, and nice controls. Your Honor, I aim to show the court today that these 3 core principles for fun are not found in the game in question. My name is Dustin, and I represent the unsatisfied people of New Game Plus. In this trial, we ask you to uphold the original ruling of no New Game Plus status that was originally ruled in a 2/3 vote in episode 65. Thank you.
Defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the jury, my name is Nolan, representing the defendant, Bomberman 64 in this case. I'd like to begin with the end. The end of episode 65 of New Game Plus. The end of my sanity, some might say. The end of my patience with my co-hosts. It was on that very day that episode was recorded. A murder took place. Yes, on January 1st, 2017, a sweet, innocent, adorable little blue, pink, and white explodey boy would pump his final bomb. No more pow or yo would be heard in all of the NGP Discord. There would never be a chance for a viewer to say, you guys remember that episode 65 where the guys unanimously gave Bomberman 64 NGP? That was cool. His fate was decided by idiots. By those that could not truly see the cuteness for what it is and not appreciate all the game had to offer for the modern gamer. Yes, it was a murder to the highest degree, and I hope you will all keep this cute little bomber in mind for the duration of this trial. So, am I here to convince you Bomberman 64 deserves NGP? Maybe. But I'm only a man. Some might call me a man-child. But let's face it, I am a fanboy. My word only means so much when it comes to the best console of all time with one of the most diverse catalogs of games ever conceived by mankind. But I'm more interested in letting the evidence speak for itself. Letting the community bring forth the facts and try to overturn this unjust ruling and give NGP to Bomberman 64.
Evidence.
Thank you for your opening statements. Prosecution, you may present your evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, what is fun? We'll start with flat level design. No, not flawless level design.
Objection,
Flat.
Your Honor. It's a 3D game. It's not a flat level design.
Prosecution, do you wish to clarify?
That's what happens there. I do. Yes, Your Honor. By flat, I of course don't mean two-dimensional or even one-dimensional, sir. I mean that it is uninspired, that it is plain, that there is not much, we'll go with this, depth to the level design. I would like to draw your attention, court, to evidence 1 from Keiko-san. Keiko-san said, quote, "There's very little depth to it and feels like there is a lot of empty space with not much reason to explore." Your Honor, I would like to direct everyone's attention to the reality that there is an astonishing lack of enemies in a vast open space in the majority of these levels, and what you're left with is an environment that is not even pretty to look at. Quote from Harold, "The level design bored me and the puzzles were too simple." Okay, Harold, let's talk about the puzzles. The flat puzzles. The puzzles in which you must do the same thing from beginning of the game to end. Oh, you might say defense. That you use these bombs in creative ways. You kick them under fences. You stack...
Excuse me. We will not speak on behalf of the defense. They can speak for themselves.
Thank you, Your
You
Honor.
may proceed.
I apologize, Your Honor. I will speak directly to you in the court. You might say that, yes, we kick bombs under the fence. We bounce on bombs. We pump bombs up. None of these are engaging or interesting in and of themselves. You are walking around, you are utilizing bombs to solve rudimentary puzzles. They're either, by the way, rudimentary or impossible, meaning stack multiple bombs to bounce off of them to get to an area that you never would have expected or known to go to in the first place. Don't even get me started on trying to collect all of the golden cards throughout the game, because good luck, you're not going to be able to do that. I just want to make the claim that this game has flat level design let me give one other quote from Hey Brother 45. The level themes are very basic. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that, because you've got green. I thought when I went to the next world, the blue world, that I would get a lot of difference. But really, that first stage in the blue world is just like all of the other stages in the green world. There's not much difference. They are
Objection,
stereotypical.
hearsay.
Sir, that's
overruled.
Thank you. That is not hearsay. That is from experience and evidence. Hey Brother 45 said they're stereotypical video game level themes found in literally every other game. And I did check, Your Honor, every game.
Excuse me, is the prosecution trying to argue and convince me that you compared this game against every other video game that's been created?
Yes, sir. Me and my team, we did our due diligence this past week.
Okay.
I'll take that as a
That's good to
proceed.
know.
Okay.
You can continue.
Final thought here on the flat level design. This game fails to provide players with engaging challenges or interesting environments to explore. That's a quote from Lieutenant Pat X, and I wholeheartedly agree. Is it flawless level design? I can't say that it is. It's flat level design. We'll go to the U in fun. Ultra-inspired enemies, which we all know. Your Honor, I don't believe that this game has ultra-inspired enemies. I believe that it has uninspired enemies. Uninspired enemies. Detective Shane said, just hit him with a bomb. And yes, that's what you do from beginning to end. You just hit him with a bomb. The enemies that you face in the normal levels, all you're doing is throwing a bomb at them. Oh, when it gets crazy, you might throw 2 bombs. What's even crazier? 3 bombs. You're just throwing bombs, sir. Hey Brother 45 said the bosses are all pretty much exactly the same and are very boring to fight. So we'll talk about the most important enemies in any video game, and that is the boss. Well, all the bosses here are the same. You've got a bird that flies at you and you throw a bomb at it. You've got a lava monster that swims around in lava and you throw a bomb at it.
Objection. Those are 2 different things. They're not all the same. This is conjecture.
Prosecution, do you have any evidence to prove to me that a bird, quote unquote, that I don't think is a bird, is the same as a lava monster?
Sir, I will retract my statement because I don't want there to be any miscommunication. But what I am trying to communicate is not that they are identical to one another. Of course, birds have wings, lava monsters do not. We all know that. However, the fight operates the same, is what I am trying to communicate. You are tossing a bomb at the boss, which you are doing to all the other scrub enemies throughout every single level. Director Garlisle actually says, quote, the big bosses feel really imprecise and awkward. Your Honor, I believe that is true. The enemies from the grunts to the bosses and everything in between are uninspired. Flat level design, uninspired enemies, and sir, instead of nice controls, clunky controls. That's right. There are clunky controls here in this game, all throughout this game. Again, citing Garlisle, Director Garlisle said, these controls are weighty and sometimes unresponsive. Lieutenant Paddock said the game's movement mechanics are sluggish and imprecise, making it difficult for players to maneuver their character effectively. I cannot express to you how often I was bombing myself. How many times I saw that dizzy animation after not clunking myself in the noggin.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench?
Usually it's not, sir, just to remind everybody in the court, it's usually not just one that approaches the bench. We both come to the bench together. I'm coming.
Prosecution, you can approach as well if you need.
I believe it's a skill issue. He's saying that he's bombing himself over, but that's a completely optional path to take in the game. You throw the bomb away from you. I think it's a skill issue.
Sir, might I ask a question to the defense?
Sure.
Did you bonk yourself and get the dizzy animation at all?
No.
Not once?
Not one time.
All right. Well, sir, Judge, Your Honor, I don't think he's telling the truth, but I'll leave that in your mighty hands.
All right, we want to stay on topic here, and though I understand the sentiment expressed by the defense's claim that the prosecution needs to get good, I do acknowledge that we have a wide variety of players at various skill levels, and that the game needs to be enjoyable regardless of where one finds itself on the get good spectrum. So, defense, I appreciate the concern, but I believe we can proceed.
I agree, Your Honor. I just wanted the record to show that he is on the lower end of that spectrum. Thank you.
Let the record state that the defense is better at platforming games than the prosecution.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And just one other thing, and that the prosecution is better than the judge. All right, I'll retract that.
Do not forget where you are. I will hold you in contempt.
Okay. Well, okay. We were just saying this to you. I'll step back to the podium.
Let's proceed.
One other comment here on the controls as we move forward, and that is the camera in particular. You need a good camera when you're moving around a fresh 3D environment. And might I remind you that this is the first Bomberman game that was released worldwide that was fully 3D. Bomberman game. And there are some issues with that, and they aged considerably. You do have the C buttons on your controller to be able to move the camera around, which is nice. However, that still does not help in many environments and areas within the game. You try to move the camera around, and you're still unable to see certain directions and certain areas that you're needing to see in order to solve the puzzle. Director Garlisle said the camera sometimes only has one good angle for tight areas, and there's no visual culling of near objects to stop them from obscuring the game. Your Honor, I believe that is true as well. So here's the thing. When you come to a game, you want to have fun. I think we can all agree with that. Fun is flawless level design, ultra-inspired bosses, and nice controls. This does not have any of those. In fact, sir, this game has flat level design, uninspired enemies, and clunky controls.
Sidebar, excuse me. Could we approach the bench?
Yeah, I'm on my way.
One more time.
Here I am. Sir.
Listen, I did not feel like I was going to need to remind either of you that this is a family-friendly podcast.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But when we take the word fun and change the acronym around to have implications, whatever it is that you're trying to communicate that are less than appropriate, the court resents that decision. So, prosecution, please just tread lightly. That's all I'll say.
Understood.
We can proceed.
That was a fun sidebar.
I was about to say in my proceedings that I rest my case.
The bench thanks the prosecution for presenting the case and all of that various evidence. It is appreciated. Defense, we'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's just get right into it with Exhibit A, not 1. I'd like to enter an expert witness statement into the evidence regarding level design / puzzles. According to Bomberman cosplayer Glenn, the level design is, quote, both approachable and deeply layered in order to allow newcomers to complete the game's levels easily. Yet, they still hide dozens of secrets each, requiring immense skill and strategy to fully navigate. This has also been corroborated by community beacon Garlisle. Only a beacon in the first half of his statement, though. The rest is trash. Accessibility is important in games, especially puzzle games. And when you have a game that allows a player to approach it 2 different ways, newcomers feel at home, it's easy to understand. That's good, and that's needed. Veteran players, or just repeat players, need to come back to the game and get something too. This game pulls off both of those things. The genre has often been guilty of being overly complex, needlessly punishing, or even too repetitive in the case of a Bejeweled, let's say, or a Dr. Mario. Not Tetris, though. So when Bomberman 64 presents puzzles in a new player-friendly manner, you have engagement, free of frustration, and you have the replayability aspect as well. However, this game is actually not a puzzler.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation issues.
Elaborate, please.
Sure. I would ask that the defense doesn't lead the judge. I feel like I just heard the defense say elaborate, but I'll leave that. So, foundation issues. The thing that he just stated, which we all clearly remember right now, has no foundation. He is failing to explain the background circumstances of why he knows the information that he is testifying about.
Defense, I'll give you an opportunity to bring some evidence. Prosecution, if you want to take umbrage with evidence that the defense has presented, you will have a chance to do that in your closing statements. For now, let's cease with the petty interruptions. Overruled.
That was my first. Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh. Spit a little coffee there. Sorry, Your Honor. As I was saying, the game is not a puzzler. It is an action-adventure game, or at least it's labeled as such. And it's just that puzzles are blended into the levels so seamlessly that you still get your combat and your exploration and the sense of adventure as you defeat these space pirates. We didn't mention the story, but the space pirates come into play, and you're saving the world here as the cute little bomber. That's Exhibit A, and also partial rebuttal to the prosecution's opinion and presentation of the level design. I'd like to move on to Exhibit B, a Discord testimony by Detective Shane, who praises the game for the inclusion of multiplayer. Why is this important? Because Bomberman is at the time of release of this game, was an established franchise. You knew what to expect with Bomberman, and a large component of that gameplay was multiplayer. The first 3D Bomberman is a big enough hurdle, and I'd argue they pulled off a fantastic single-player experience, but they had the self-awareness to make sure they deliver a solid multiplayer mode. Expert witness Glenn had this to say about multiplayer. The multiplayer mode is very fun, and a player customization system and CPUs that allow it to not be blocked off by limited players, as is often a stated negative aging factor for retro games. He means that if you have an odd number of friends, let's say the three of us sat down to play this game, you would be able to fill in the empty slots with CPU to make it feel like a cohesive experience. Not to mention the customization system. As you're collecting things in the single-player mode, you're unlocking things for multiplayer. It bridges the gap there and presents a reason to explore other modes in the game. Some of my favorite experiences on the console are playing with friends. GoldenEye, Smash Brothers, and Bomberman 64. It's a great pick-up-and-play multiplayer that should not be overlooked when considering the game.
Objection, Your Honor. I do need to bring to the court that multiplayer is largely unavailable to today's modern audience. I just would like that to be in the record.
So let the record state that the prosecution does not have friends. Understood.
Wow, Judge, Your Honor. I mean, true, but
Wow.
Okay.
We can clarify. Do you own a couch
I own one couch, yes, Your Honor.
that has room for more than one person to sit on it?
Yes, Your Honor. Relevance?
It's pretty clear. Let's proceed.
Multiplayer should not be overlooked when considering the game. A detail I might add my co-hosts weren't able to speak to when recording the episode. You might say, well, that in itself is a problem with playing the game today. But I say, nay. Go buy some friends and hardware and bring couch co-op back. Exhibit C. The next piece of evidence I'd like to submit is a simple fact, actually. Bomberman, the main character, is painfully cute. Glenn made this his opening exhibit, which speaks to the importance of this evidence. Harold also speaks to his cuteness. This is important because the franchise had already been established, He had already been cute, but we're talking about the jump from 2D to 3D, which has the potential to cause offense to a beloved character. In this case, from the little noises he makes to the character model, you've got your main character. You've got Bomberman, just in a new setting. This is important. If you listen to what he says when he makes his little noises, when he throws the little bombs, and yes, when he gets dizzled, and you say, you shrug it off, and you move on with your life, I would question that man's sanity. I say Bomberman is adorable. Bomberman is cute, and he is vital to experiencing this game. Kids can play the game and enjoy it. Grown men like me can see the character and enjoy it as well. Moving on. To my final piece of evidence, Exhibit D, and arguably one of the more important pieces of evidence that I want to bring to the court today, and that is the music of Bomberman 64. Evidence that is vital to a game's overall feel and experience. In fact, this point was driven home by my co-host, one Kenny Redacted. He stated that, quote, music is a huge part of our experience and how we interact with games. This was mentioned on episode 65, by the way, if I didn't mention. The public had this to say about the OST. Garlisle describes it as cozy and enjoyable. Shane simply calls it wonderful. Harold Boutin had to even call out the OST, calling it chill. You see, the Bomberman music here it simply did not have to go that hard. With tracks like Blue Resort, the Stage Select theme, and Black Fortress, it stands out amongst its N64 peers.
Objection. I'll just say objection. That is cause for speculation because maybe they did have to go this hard. I don't think the defense knows whether or not they had to go this hard. Speculation.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Defense, please don't speak to the
hardness.
The level of hard that the developers may or may not have chosen to go.
Thank you.
I'll retract my statement and say the music could be soft or hard depending on who is listening to it. It stands out amongst its peers. In fact, 2 tracks from this OST made it into the NGP Relaxing Music playlist, which is now at a handsome 3.4 million views. The OST is great. It is a standout on the console, and it helps, according to Kenny, the cohesive gaming experience in drawing you in. That's all the evidence I would like to submit to the court today. Thank you.
Closing arguments.
We will let the prosecution bring the first closing argument.
Your Honor, I feel like I have demonstrated today that this child's game is simply not fun. And I'll remind you in the court one last time, fun. Flawless level design, ultra-inspired enemies, and nice controls. That's what fun is. But what is this game? Flat level design, uninspired enemies, and clunky controls. Your Honor, the defense had multiple opportunities to bring many pieces of evidence, and largely, I think you would agree with me, Your Honor, stuck with only one key witness throughout his entire time, and that was Clint, of course. He did mention, very briefly, a couple of others, but why, Your Honor? We do have to ask why. Why would he omit Brojim's thoughts when Brojim purchased the game physically to be able to get it and to play it and experiment with it? Why would he omit an email that came in late last night from Nuclear Cheerios, a 12-year-old who gave their thoughts on why they like the game? Why would they omit many other thoughts on the positive side, Your Honor? My argument would be that there is just not enough compelling evidence that this game is fun. This game isn't fun, Your Honor, in 2023. May have it been fun back in the 90s? Maybe. But here in 2023, there are plenty other games, and I will direct your attention one last time to one other compelling thing that I have brought up, alluded to, but want to clarify here in my closing statement. When you think of the Nintendo 64 and this era of gaming, you think of many great N64 titles, Banjo and Kazooie. You think of games like GoldenEye 007. You think of games like Donkey Kong 64, which I don't love. You think of Star Fox 64. There are so many great N64 titles from this era. You know what you don't think about? You don't think about Bomberman 64. Because although it's not a horrendous game, there are games that are far worse. This is not among the greats. This is not among the classics, and this should certainly be left to yesteryear. Your Honor, court, jury, I argue that Bomberman 64 should remain not New Game Plus certified. I rest my case.
Thank you. Defense.
All of this talk of murder, and I never mention a killer. Who placed the proverbial knife in the back of young Bomberman? Was it the NGP community? No. Was it the two co-hosts that didn't give it NGP? I say no. It was none other than me. I was the one who didn't possess the podcasting skills on episode 65. I was the one who allowed unforgivable remarks to be said about the game. I just stood there, even saying things like, yeah, that's fair. I don't even know myself anymore. I have failed Bomberman. I failed him on that day, and I'll have to live with it the rest of my life. Unless, Judge, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, unless you overturn this ruling. It's in your hands. Take us to a reality where Bomberman 64 is NGP. I want to be out of the reality where it isn't NGP, but Chex Quest is. Why didn't I include Brojim? Why didn't I include the 12-year-olds that wrote in? To be honest, my secretary was asleep at the time. I didn't see the email come in. I apologize, but the prosecution brought it up for me, for everyone to hear, so thank you for that. Why don't people mention it with the other great games? I would argue it's because NGP currently has a status and ranking of Bomberman 64 as not New Game Plus certified. People take that seriously. They don't go and play games that aren't recommended by these guys. I say it's time to change that. It's in all of your hands. I've presented the evidence. The community has spoken. Is the game fun? Of course. Of course. No acronym. Just plain old American fun. I rest my case, Your Honor.
Thank you both for taking the time to present your evidence today. We'll have a brief recess while the court considers the evidence and the attitude of those presenting the evidence and brings you a verdict shortly.
During this time, I will go play on the monkey bars.
We are adjourned for the moment.
Okay.
The verdict.
Court is now back in session. Thank you for a moment in recess. The bench would like to thank the prosecutor and the defense both for the efforts they brought forward in hearing from our community and presenting evidence, in putting together both well thought out opinions and acronyms. Decisions like these don't come lightly. It takes a lot of convincing to change a precedent that's been established, especially by professionals with the renown of our NGP hosts. After careful consideration of very divided opinions of the evidence presented, of seeing gameplay for a second time, we've come to a decision. And I must say, if in the future we do this again, prosecution, you need to be very careful with both how you present your evidence and in what evidence you may provide inadvertently for the defense as well. I will say that I appreciate all of the thoughts and efforts, but that ultimately the emotional appeal as well as the cuteness of the titular character have in fact swayed my opinion that started in such a divided state anyways. Bomberman 64 is now New Game Plus certified.
No!
Thank you for your time.
Congratulations. We did it.
Directors, thank you for bringing us the opportunity to revisit this title. Community members, thank you for presenting evidence of all of the various kinds. Some of it was better than others, but all of you participated and were part of our community, and we thank you for helping us reach this decision.
I tried.
With that, we will say court is adjourned.
What did you as our community think? Thank you for those of you that wrote in and gave us pieces of evidence, including Bro Jim and the 12-year-old that emailed us. I wanted to make sure that we shouted all of you out. We had many votes on our YouTube poll this week. Of course, 55% said yes, Bomberman 64 is worth playing today. 11% were correct and said no, go play something else. And 34% have never played it before, probably because there are many other N64 games worth playing.
Court's over.
Okay. For now, however, we are going to set aside Bomberman 64 for the last time.
Never again. There's no double director's court yet.
Yeah, no double jeopardy.
And we are going to select the next retro game of the week. Comes at a very interesting time because next week is going to be Retro Recap 15. We have 3 of our community members that will be hosting that splendiferous episode once again and recapping 25 or so games and episodes in the recent NGP history. And so D.H. Bowser, one of our directors, has waited patiently for a time where we as a community could spend 2 weeks with their game.
Thank you for waiting.
And so, after next week's Retro Recap 15, we will reconvene, not in the courtroom, but in the normal NGP room, and we will be playing an action RPG.
Heyo.
Like it.
First game that we are playing for the Wii.
Whoa.
All right.
Yes.
Everybody, get your Wii's out, because we are going to be playing this week a game that was developed by Intelligent Systems, produced by Nintendo in the year 2007, maybe most recent game we played.
Maybe.
It is the 3rd installment in the series.
All right.
We are playing Super Paper Mario.
I haven't played this game. This is big.
Nolan, I thought you'd played all of these.
Not all of them, no.
You played Paper Mario, though, right?
Of course. And I've played Thousand Year Door on GameCube.
Right.
I missed
but
this
you
one.
haven't played Super Paper Mario. Okay.
A few things of note that's interesting. This was the first, did I read it correctly? The first Mario game on the Wii? The first game to bring Mario to the Wii, I believe?
Certainly not. No. I think Super Mario Galaxy was a launch title. And
on the Wii?
Yeah.
Super
There's no way
Paper...
this was the first Mario game on Wii.
I'll tell you in a second. It was the first Mario game to be released on the Wii. So there is a way. And I rest my case. So
what?
find a copy of Super Paper Mario and find a copy of a Wii and find a copy of a Wii remote and find a copy of a sensor bar and play Super Paper Mario along with us and D.H. Bowser next week and the week that follows.
You want to talk about evidence? This episode is evidence that you should join our Discord, because that's where we got all that info, all the exhibits. It was a lot of fun this week in Discord, and we want you to be a part of it.
Exhibit 1.
Go to
I had Exhibit 1.
go to discord.gg/newgameplus to give us Exhibit 2. I'm waiting.
So obviously, this whole entire episode and all the uniqueness that comes with it was brought to you by our director level supporters. We just wanted to do something fun and different and entertaining and special for you guys, and hopefully this was enjoyable. So thank you to Brojim, Daniel, DH Bowser, Garlisle, and Super Hypered. You guys go truly above and beyond in supporting the show, and we're so grateful for you. You go hard. We also have a large list of producer level supporters who are wonderful sort of core members of our community, including Adam, Alex, Marley, Antonin, Ben, Big Dude, Brunt, Ellis, Fishy, Francesca, Gimbin, J. Robert, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Clint, Nicknack, Corey, Lawai, Levi, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Pedro, Sajin, Shauna, Subsonic Demon, Tazelhoff, Thomas, Unbedavable, and Zion. Big shout out to Anthony and Jason for joining us as patrons for the first time this week.
Welcome.
We are appreciative of all of you and look forward to your continued involvement in our community.
And if it wasn't clear enough, this whole episode was not only brought to you by our patrons, but specifically our directors. They were the ones that came together behind the scenes, planned out which game we would be revisiting. They had a list of games that they were talking through. I think probably 8, maybe to 10 games that they were looking at. And so we will do more directors episodes in the future. We promise at least one a year, but it could be as many as 2 a year. Where we revisit games. So again, if you want to find out more information about that, I know we've said it many times, ngppodcast.com or patreon.com/ngppodcast. You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week for Retro Recap 15 and the week after for Super Paper Mario. Until then, I'm still Phoenix, right?
I'm still the judge.
I'm innocent.
Until proven guilty.
Yep.
And this has been the Director's Court episode of New Game Plus.